Hi guys, today we will learn how to tune the air-fuel ratio AFR of your turbo engine with exhaust gas oxygen EGO correction. Open the data logger. For our tuning process we will require graphs for RPM, MAP, AFR, TPS, GT, AFR target and EGO correction. I recommend setting AFR EGT and AFR target on the first graph. This arrangement allows us to easily compare the targeted values throughout our tuning process with the actual values obtained from the engine. The AFR target map defines values for EGO correction during closed-loop operation. Essentially, it instructs our ECU to promptly adjust towards the specified values in this table. Now, for optimal power. We aim for an air-fuel ratio around 12.8. Let's set all the values in our tuning parameters to achieve this target. Now let's address the bottom map. While 12.8 is an excellent AFR for naturally aspirated engines, in forced induction engines we need to enrich our mixture. As boost increases, so does temperature of burning gases and the risk of detonation rises. We must introduce extra fuel to cool down temperatures and mitigate potential issues. Remember that the higher the boost, the greater the risk of knock, and it is necessary to enrich the air-fuel ratio more just below the level where knock could occur. In our BMW M3, the current maximum boost is 2 bar, which is 300 kilopascal, or kPa, so at 300 kPa, we need to enrich the mixture to a value of 10.8 AI FRI, representing a value of -20 in our table. As the boost values in our table decrease, our targeted mixture enrichment must also decrease. We don't want to overly enrich the mixture and lose potential performance with an excessively rich mixture. The best approach is to maintain the air-fuel ratio just below the knock level. Now, let's attempt our first dyno run with EGO correction turned off. We will open the data logger, and there we will see our first dyno run. Its beginning and end are easily readable based on the throttle position sensor values in the graph, which is at 100%. We can also see that the EGO correction is not doing anything as it stays at 100%, indicating no fuel dose adjustment. Additionally, EGT enrichment wasn't necessary as we didn't reach such high exhaust gas temperatures. The status bar also doesn't indicate any functioning EGO or EGT correction. In the first graph, we can see that the AFR values and the target AFR do not match. We have two options: either adjust the AFR map or enable EGO correction and observe how the ECU manages it in closed loop mode. We will open the EGO correction menu again and enable EGOA. For the best results, you can experiment with different values for change rate and step. My recommended values are 200 ms and 1 step. Max MAP defines the range within which EGO correction operates. Let's try the maximum or the entire range of boost. We can see that EGO correction is working now as the values are displayed in green. We can see that EGO correction was active. The lowest graph is no longer at 100%, but displays various values, mostly lower. Similarly, the status bar indicates that EGO adjusted the fuel dose. On the first graph, we can observe that it did quite well, as the AFR and AFR target values are almost identical. All right, let's consider another issue. During longer runs, the LGT temperature may rise to excessively high values such as 850 degrees Celsius and beyond. In the ECU Tuner, this point is critical as it leads to the shutdown of our wideband O2 sensor operation. The O2 sensor is defined in a way that the longer the exhaust gas temperature stays above 850 degrees Celsius, the sooner the O2 sensor stops working. If the EGT reaches 900 degrees Celsius, the O2 sensor shuts down immediately and the ECU receives only a predefined FR value, which can be set in the O2 sensor menu To restart the R2 sensor, it is necessary to reduce the OGT temperature below 850 degrees Celsius for at least 5 seconds. Now here's the problem. We can see that during a prolonged run, the EGT temperature can rise up to 850 and sometimes even 900 degrees Celsius or more. The issue with AGO correction enabled is that when the O2 sensor stops functioning due to high temperatures, the ECU loses visibility into the AFR value. The ECU receives a signal that the current value is preset in the case of high EGT at 14.7, and based on this, it begins to enrich the mixture rapidly, as the AFR target map value is around 10.8. In the best case scenario, this leads to a loss of performance, and in the worst case, it could result in a fuel cut as a protective measure due to an excessively rich mixture. We have several options for addressing this issue with the goal of achieving peak performance under full throttle from our engine. To start with, we can try reducing the max map value in the EGO correction menu. For sure, Ron. This will ensure that EGO correction does not adjust the fuel dose at the highest boost levels, where AGT tends to rise the most. We see that EGO correction worked only until reaching 1.7 bar of boost, and subsequently, fuel injection operated solely based on the AFR map. It is perhaps the simplest method, but not very clever, as we lost peak power in the high RPM range. Right, let's try another method to bypass the issue of turning off the oxygen sensor at high exhaust gas temperature. We will set the maximum manifold absolute pressure value to its maximum to allow EGO correction to operate throughout the entire boost spectrum. This time, we will enable the option to turn off GO correction at high EGTI. This will disable EGO correction at the temperature value. We set in the exhaust gas temperature fuel enrichment menu. We can see that the EGO worked until reaching 900 degrees Celsius AGTA. After that, fuel enrichment followed, and subsequently, the O2 sensor turned off. I'll show you another option. We can prevent rapid exhaust gas temperature heating by setting EGT fuel enrichment lower. For example, at 800 degrees Celsius and enriching by 15 to 20%. This will avoid reaching high temperatures even during long runs, but at the cost of sacrificing performance, as the mixture in the cylinders will be quite rich to cool the exhaust gases. We can see that it's difficult to reach 850 degrees Celsius, but at the cost of a rich mixture reaching around 9.8 AFR. We can see that EGO is working concurrently with EGT correction, but EGO has already reached 89%, which is its set limit for enriching by 10%. If we need EGO to enrich or enlean more or less, we can adjust this range. Keep in mind that the issue with such a high rise in exhaust gas temperatures is only present with an extremely tuned ignition map and high boost. With lower boost settings and a more conservative ignition timing, not right below the knock threshold, many problems disappear, over which we would otherwise spend hours scratching our heads. Okay, let's set values to default settings, and I want to show you how to tune the AFR map based on EGO correction. We can see that at 5,500 RPM and 1.8 bar of boost, which is 280 kPa. EGO correction leans the fuel dose by about 10%, resulting in a value of 90.7%. This implies that we can reduce the injector pulse width in the AFR map precisely in this range. Let's try it. Now, we can compare the values and see that by adjusting the map, EGO is leaning the fuel mixture by just under 7% compared to before the adjustment. If we have enough time and knowledge, we can adjust our maps so that EGO intervenes in them in the smallest scale possible, reduce the enrich or enlean range, and thus avoid problems with lambda sensor dropout at high gas temperatures. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!